Be more than human.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Joseph Carroll. I write under the pen name J.R. Carroll, and today we find ourselves back in the world created by George R.R. Martin, and specifically we are at A Clash of Kings, Book 2 in A Song of Ice and Fire. Before we jump into my thoughts on the second book, just wanted to thank all of you as we are now headed towards 2,000 subscribers. I don't know, I'm just blown away by all of you. I can't thank you enough, and I will have something special once we reach 2,000 subscribers. So if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, hey, subscribe. I review so many different books. I appreciate it, and let's jump into the review here. Now, the first book, A Game of Thrones, is widely considered one of the best books of all time, and in fact, it's probably in my top 10 books, and I had so much hype going into the second book. I'm like, all right, well, we just had this amazing, I just had this amazing ride, can it live up to it? And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the longest book I've ever read. Now, the way I kind of do it is I look at Kindle page reach, because all different books have different sizes and fonts, so they can kind of inflate or deflate their numbers. But I think Kindle has it at 1,042 pages.
That's a huge bit.
Yeah, I think the closest to that is like one of the Malazan books was like 988 or 966, something like that. So this is a long, long book. But one thing I will say is I'm not once a book gets past 700 pages, I kind of, there's always this weird thing about books over that length. But George does not fall into that trap. And in fact, this book being over 1,000 pages long, it didn't like, yes, time-wise, it took me a while to get through it, but it didn't feel, sometimes really long books feel tedious. I don't know if you have that same issue when you're going through really large books, but I didn't feel that at all. And actually, it just flowed so smoothly. And one thing I said in a video that I had previously about like what authors do I think have the best skill set in certain aspects, and the best author when it came to multiple POVs, I said it was George R.R. Martin, and I believe that is still the case here in the second book, because it just seamlessly transitions from one POV or one character to another. And yeah, it didn't feel like it was 1,000 pages. One thing I will say here is, I didn't feel like we reached any crazy heights or anything in this book. It was just good all the way through, and that is a big compliment from me for a book that's over 700 pages. Because a lot of times when you get a 700-page book or more, there's at least 100, 200 pages in there that didn't really feel like it had to be there. Here, I didn't feel that as much. I felt like everything, all the page count, all the word count was used very wisely. There's so many great characters. Theon had a lot of time here. And I love Theon's struggle of I want to be the best and live up to my father, but then also he doesn't really quite share their values anymore, because he's lived with the Starks for 10 years. So he doesn't really want to do things exactly the way that his family has always done them, though he wants to be the head of his family. Still, Sansa, I'm still not like super invested in her. It like if I had to like put one of the POVs at the bottom, it would probably be her. Arya, Arya, she's one of my favorites. But this book, I didn't think she was as good as the last book. Tyrion Lannister, the Imp, amazing. He was so much more badass. It's been a long time since I watched the show, or at least watched where this lied in the show. But I felt like he was a lot more badass in the book here than he was in the show. He's actually out there murking fools, with his little axe. And then you had the Baratheon brothers. Stannis had a lot of time in here. You had the whole Stannis is, feels he's the rightful heir, and which he probably is if we're going by the rules that they've actually set here. But then his little brother, Renly, he's like, well, I'm better suited. Who cares? He's like, who cares about first in line and all this? I'm the best suited to be the king. And in this book, we get our first real glimpse of true magic. Basically the Red Witch or whatever. Performing some real magic feats, assassinations and stuff like that, with some freaky, real freaky magic. A lot of more of the mountain than I remember in the show. I felt, and again, it's been a while since I watched the show, but I feel like in the books, the Mountain Gregor has a lot more presence in the book than he did in the show. He just seems just like a big lumbering guard that was always just standing there. He only ever had a few handful of lines, and not that he talks a ton here, but you do get a little bit more into him. Jon Snow, great as always, still one of my favorite characters. I love everything about the wildlings and all, north of the wall. Love that stuff. And I think one thing that George does magnificently in this book is, you have, well, at least myself, I assume most people feel this way, is that you have a certain set of people that you're rooting for, right? Most people are probably rooting for Robb and King of the North, to win this thing. But also, we all like Tyrion, and and you're like, man, we really like you, but you're going against the people we want to actually win. So it's like, we don't want you dead, but we don't want them to lose. George does a magnificent job there. This book, I would say it definitely, lives up to the hype. What I say is, maybe technically it's as good as a Game of Thrones, but I guess it's you get that first book syndrome, and when the first book's really good, it just hits harder, hits different than a follow-up book. But yeah, just amazing. Can't wait to continue. I may throw the next book on the docket. I don't know if I can get it in this month. I may have to wait till August, just because these books, the next book's probably over 1,000 pages too. So I don't want to weigh myself down too much here. But thank you. Let me know in the comment section, how did you feel about Clash of Kings? Was it, did you feel like it was better than the first book? Not as good? Were you disappointed? Leave all that stuff. Make sure you like this. And if you did, check out my Patreon. Got some pretty cool stuff going on in there. And remember, be more than human.